I have a presentation here that you might find useful. You might want to download this. You can download the PDF here on Canvas, and this PDF has a listing of major galleries in the Los Angeles area, museums in Los Angeles, and also a little bit in Orange County. And I would highly recommend it for anyone who wants to go out and see art, which, of course, studying an art class, part of studying an art class is learning how to appreciate it, and part of appreciating it is going out and seeing it. It doesn't do any justice to do it on a screen or do it in a book. You really got to go live and see things. I recommend going to openings too, by the way. So I have a list here of the museums and galleries, a very short history of LA, and then I have an assignment on watching a video about the first major art movement in Los Angeles that begins after World War II, the Ferris Gallery and the Cool School. So if you want to know where LA art first becomes really respected like New York City, it's with the Cool School. So I have put together this lecture after a couple of decades going out and seeing art. I see art all the time, and there's a lot of places to see art. Here we have MoCA, there is a Mark Rothko in the background, we have a Charlie Ray sculpture here. This is one of the coolest places to see art in LA, in Chinatown. This is known as Chungking Road. It's a road that there's no cars on. It's a road you got to know exists. You got to walk around Chinatown to find it. And it has had a really thriving gallery scene at various points, and it still has a couple of important galleries there, including the Charlie James Gallery. So galleries in LA there weren't always galleries. It was a little bit backwards compared to the East Coast in New York City. So there were plenty of commercial galleries in New York, but not here in LA. So artists had to kind of make their own galleries, and that history of artist-made spaces still does exist in LA. So we have Edward Kienholz. He starts the Now Gallery, and the Now Gallery was in the green room of a theater. And this is kind of where artists, and again, the Cool School kind of begins in terms of showing artwork. Below, you're looking at one of Ed Kienholz's art pieces. It's called Backseat Dodge. It is a 38 Dodge that has been cut apart. It has recorded music in it. It has chicken wire, beer bottles, artificial grass, and plaster figures that are partially made that also show the chicken wire as well. So when you look inside of the car and you hear the music, you see a drunken knight with a bunch of beer bottles, and you see a man trying to put his hand up a woman's skirt and her grabbing his hand and trying to stop it. So the Dodge is literally a style of car, but it's also a pun for the woman dodging his advances. And this kind of assemblage art is what Ed Kienholz is known for. The Ferris Gallery becomes the first major gallery on La Cienega. It's curated by Walter Hopps, and also will have a business partner in Irving Blum as well. And I would like you to look at both of them in the video if you want to do the assignment. So we see that they are a gallery that is about new ways of painting with using car enamels. They are interested still in the legacy of abstraction, but also interested in the kind of light and space that California has to offer. And so we see a number of artists going in different directions than what was happening in New York City. One of the big painters was Billy L. Bengston. He was using car enamel finish painting to make images that appeared abstract, but often were images and logos of companies or pieces of his motorcycles. Early museums included the Pasadena Art Museum that showed new painting of common objects in 1962, which was the very first museum of American pop art. So they were the first museum to show the pop artists, including the very first museum show of Andy Warhol. And the LA artist was Wayne Thiebaud. Thiebaud is the artist doing the cakes that you see with the very purple shadows, very much like Monet in terms of the shadows being not black but color. And he was showing the kind of cakes that you would find in local diners in Los Angeles. We get our first major museum with the LA County Museum of Art that begins in 1961. It was the largest art museum in the Western United States and had several buildings. You're looking at the Amundsen building on the top floor with an art project by Megan Geckler with flagging tape. And then you're also looking at Chris Burden's Urban Lights there. In the bottom image, you're seeing the third floor of the Broad building at LACMA. And we're looking at some Michael Jackson sculptures and a Jeff Koons sculptures, a balloon dog, and Michael Jackson. And we are also seeing a large Andy Warhol painting in the very, very back. So the museum kicks off with artist Ed Kienholz. And Kienholz has a contract with this new museum, and he's showing one of his assemblage art pieces, The Illegal Operation. This is a sculpture about backroom abortions that are happening when abortion was illegal in the United States and women were dying from it. The artwork about abortion caused such an outrage that the museum took down the exhibit. But Kienholz had a contract and lawyers who were willing to work for an artist pro bono, and ultimately they kept the artwork in the show. And the newspaper coverage of this artwork in this brand new museum helped to establish LACMA as one of the most important art museums in the United States. So it worked in their favor, even though they didn't really do it themselves. It's a great history of outsider art in Los Angeles. Certainly Watts Towers, I think, is one of the great works of art ever made in the United States. It is steel towers, and you can see Simon Rodia climbing up it in the picture in the bottom right. He built this in his modest property in Watts by collecting construction materials from sites that he would work at. He was a welder, and he produced these towers without any permits, and then he decorated them with broken bottles and other ephemera, broken plates and things that he would find. When he leaves the United States and leaves the property to his neighbors, the city of Los Angeles wanted to tear these down, saying that there were no permits and that you couldn't be sure that these things were not going to fall on the neighbors' homes. And yet, when they tried to pull it down with a tractor, they did not budge. He had made these really, really well. And now the city of Los Angeles owns the property, and it is a museum, and I highly recommend going to Watts and seeing it. And see how small the house that he lived in and the space was in. So we not only have commercial spaces, we have alternative art spaces, pop-up shows, they're called. Woman House was one of them. Woman House was artists from ARTH that was organized by Judy Chicago and Miriam Shapiro, who founded the feminist art program at ARTH. And the students are making installations. There's a very good film on this that I can link you to at the bottom of the slide on your PDF. It's easy to find online as well. And they made an entire house installation performances by women about women's lives, and was pretty extraordinary, probably unprecedented in terms of when it was done and who it included. House is another artist-run space by artist Ichiro Ire, a Japanese artist living in Santa Monica. He bought a property with some rundown shacks on it, and he enlisted an architect to help him build artist spaces, and he opens up those spaces in the summer to artists who come from all over the world to spend a summer in LA and show art in LA. MoCA, the big contemporary museum in downtown Los Angeles, that was founded in 1979. It has another big space in Little Tokyo, the Geffen Contemporary from 1983, and its flagship building on Grand Avenue is opened in 1986. The museum is really important for showing new art. It has a permanent collection, and for a long time, under the guidance of Paul Schimmel, was one of the best art museums in the country. We get art galleries in places like Bergamot Station. That was a railroad station from 1875 to 1953. And then when railroads stopped being important to Los Angeles in terms of transportation because of the automobile, the entire complex was turned into cheap gallery spaces and still exists today. I think its heyday was the early 21st century. Many of the galleries have moved on, mostly to downtown LA. But we do see a big kind of transformation in the 90s and early 2000s in Chinatown, and here's Blum and Poe, their first building in Culver City. So on La Cienega here, there were about 10 galleries. Chinatown had about 7 or 8 galleries on Chungking Road. Now downtown LA has a bunch of galleries. There's some important galleries in Midtown. There's the Gagosian Gallery in Beverly Hills. There are a lot of commercial galleries in LA, and it's really the center of the West Coast commercial art world. I have here kind of a list. There are links, again, why I think you should download the PDF. I have links to all their websites that tell you what the exhibitions are, whether they cost money or not, where they are. Everything is provided here. So LACMA, which is rebuilding its main building right now, should be done in a couple of years, have had great shows that I've seen, including the Japanese pavilion where I saw the Hanawa horse, the newer Resnick pavilion. That was the first time I saw one of those giant Olmec heads that we've been seeing. MoCA Downtown from Paul Schimmel, the Helter Skelter show in the 90s was one of the most important shows that showed that LA was as good, if not better, than what New York was doing in the early 90s. And that was all Paul Schimmel that curated that. We saw artists like Robert Williams in an art museum. We were seeing artwork by Barbara Kruger in the Geffen. And this is still up on the Geffen right now. They repainted this in the last few years. A newer museum that opened on Grand Avenue is the Broad Museum, showing the billion-dollar collection of Eli Broad. This is the artist's rendition of the building. It looks more in real life like a cheese grater with the Eye of Sauron on it, but it was built by Diller, Scofidio, and Renfro, really important architects. They have some great art, including the Robert Therian, where you can walk under this giant table like you were 4 years old. And they also have some really great installations like Kusama's Infinity Room. ICA, the Institute of Contemporary Art, also really important artist space. Here we're looking at an outsider artist named Martin Ramirez. The Getty Center, off of the 405, again, really important art space as well as a major library. I showed you an image of it in our second lecture. We have a garden done by Robert Irwin, who is one of the artists from the Cool School. The Hammer Museum is the off-campus site for UCLA, made by Armand Hammer. And we have a really important show every 2 years there called Made in LA. That's where I first became aware of Jennifer Moon. They have a great project room and the staircase where there's great art. This is the street artist Twist here. They have some really good stuff up right now. That I've been there a couple times in the last few weeks. Some really, really good art. And it's free. Museums are always free, by the way. Or no, I take that back. Galleries are always free. Museums, sometimes they cost money, sometimes they don't. You just have to check and see. This is the Museum of Latin American Art in Long Beach, a museum dedicated solely to Latin American artists. The Fowler Museum is on the campus of UCLA. It's a free museum. They have a really good African art collection, and they show contemporary African artists like El Anatsue here. We have also a new African American museum that is near USC and near an exposition park in South Los Angeles. That includes the Natural History Museum. The Lucas Museum of Narrative Art is being built there right now. That should be exciting. The Norton Simon Museum is a really good space for seeing Asian artwork. The Craft and Folk Art Museum is across from LACMA. It's a smaller space, but I've seen some very good craft shows there. ACMA is in Newport Beach. They have a new building now. They showed Chris Burden's Tale of Two Cities. This Richard Jackson was one of my favorite shows. He's a graduate of UCLA. It featured on the outside of the museum a giant plastic dog peeing yellow paint on the museum for 30 days. It was grand. Galleries, and again, galleries are always free. What I really recommend you doing is finding out when they have openings. When you have openings, there'll be, usually the artist will be there, or artists. There's lots of people there, and also they have food and they have free alcohol there too. It's a great place to take dates. It makes you look like you're cultured, and you can have a couple drinks for free, see a bunch of art. Cheap date, but very cultured experience. Take me up on that. Blum and Poe, as I said, one of the great galleries in Los Angeles, in Culver City. Think Space has moved out of Culver City, is in downtown. They show lowbrow art and graffiti art, good stuff. Honor Fraser has been on La Cienega for a long time. On the west side, you got Matthew Marks. It's a gallery kind of all by itself, but they've shown some really good work, including Charlie Ray. Gagosian is the most prestigious gallery in all of Los Angeles in Beverly Hills. They have shown artists like Jeff Koons, and also that's where I saw Mike Kelly's Candors, which were versions of Superman's city that was miniaturized and put in a bottle. The Midtown galleries, some really good stuff there. Regan Projects always has great artists, another Charlie Ray piece here. I just saw on La Brea a new gallery that I should put in called the Control Gallery, where I saw the tattoo artist Mr. Cartoon. They look like they're going to be a really good gallery. The writer Roger Gassman is running that gallery. Another great gallery, even though Jeffrey Deitch was not very good at MoCA, he does have a nice gallery and shows some pretty good shows, and I do recommend going to his gallery. The Pace Gallery, one of my favorite galleries on La Brea, no signage out front. You have to know it's there. There's a little call box and a buzzer. You just hit the buzzer and they'll let you in. And they have some really cool stuff, including an office with a skyscape by James Turrell. La Luz de Jesus is a gallery that started the lowbrow movement with Billy Shire. This was a toy store that was selling toys from Japan back when you didn't have the internet and couldn't buy that stuff so easily. And they had a small gallery in the back. And in that gallery is where we see the lowbrow movement starting. And they still show great art today. LA Louvre on Venice Beach shows really prestigious artwork like Ben Jackal. There's a parking lot right across from here. You can park for free if you get your parking ticket validated by LA Louvre, which means you can also walk about a block and be right on Venice Beach and not pay for parking. I love not paying for parking in LA. We have a lot of great nonprofit galleries. Human Resources, I think, and LACE are the two most important ones that have been showing performance art and art that you can't sell for a long time, and I highly recommend them. Downtown LA, we have the Red Cat, which is an off-campus gallery run by Cal Arts. I saw Making Chinatown by Ming Wong there, which was extraordinary, where he remade the movie Chinatown with Jack Nicholson, but he stars in every single role. Luis De Jesus was in Culver City, now is in downtown LA. He has some great artists, including one of my favorite artists, Carla Diaz. The Box is in the Artist District in downtown LA, run by the daughter of artist Paul McCarthy. She shows some pretty good work. Benjamin Weissman, We Never Kissed, is about dreams he had of a white gorilla that he made love to, however, ... Hauser and Wirth is probably the biggest gallery in Los Angeles in the Artist District in downtown LA off of 2nd Street in Gary. And they are in an old flour factory and a bank, and they have spectacular art there that they show all the time. This is Paul McCarthy, the father of Mara McCarthy, and he is a really important artist to Los Angeles and someone you should see. Suzanne Vielmetter also has a great gallery in a little bit east of the downtown. She shows artists like Olga Komendoros. We saw a video by Mary Reed Kelly earlier in the semester, and the drawings of Carl Handel, who was the cover of our drawing lecture. Corey Halford is the wife of a television and movie producer. She has really interesting tastes, including Shag, who does this digital artwork that is very reminiscent of a kind of lifestyle of the 1940s or 50s. In Chinatown, I think Chinatown's Charlie James is the most important gallery to see young Mexican and Mexican-American artists. He is continually finding new and great talent. If you want to see the next thing, UCLA has open graduate studios in the spring. Check their website for when that happens. They have some of the best professors that you could ever imagine to teach you art, and is a very important place for new artists to come out of. Orange County, we don't have a lot of great galleries because the galleries are really centered in Los Angeles. We do have, I think, a good gallery in Santa Ana with the Grand Central Art Center that is really well curated and does have a lot of merit. It is the off-site gallery that is run by Cal State Fullerton. And then maybe the most interesting thing that I'm showing you in this lecture is the Museum of Jurassic Technology on Venice Boulevard. It is not doesn't have a lot of signage to it, doesn't have a lot of fanfare, but when you go into it, it's free, although there's a person sitting at a desk. It's free, and when you go in, it seems like it's a science museum. And as you begin to look at the exhibits, all taking themselves very seriously, you begin to realize that this is a joke. It's a put-on. None of this is real science. It's pretending to be a science museum. A lot of fun. The last thing are the art walks. So the art walks that happen in downtown LA, Santa Ana, Pomona, and probably a few other places. The art walks are places where all of the galleries open up and the businesses are open, and you can come down after work or after school and see art and have dinner, go to a bar or two, listen to some live music. There's some pretty great stuff happening in terms of art walks, and they happen usually once a month. You just have to look on the website to find out what the day is, and the day is usually like the third Saturday or the first Friday or something. They always kind of do it that way. All right, so if you would like to participate in this assignment here, for our summer class it's extra credit. Check and see if it's mandatory if you're in a spring or a fall class. What I would like you to do is to watch this documentary on the LA Cool School. I'd like to know your opinions on the art. I want you to find out who Walter Hopps and Irving Blum are. I want to know what your favorite artist in the documentary is and why. And then also, why is LA considered cool? Is it cool? Is it not cool? What makes it so? I hope you have some fun with it. Talk to you soon.